Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. Today we're talking about
the Wheel of Time RPG.
the Wheel of Time RPG. Why, you ask?
Or make one. Or make one.
The show came out recently.
Right. On, I don't know what it's...
Amazon Prime.
Okay. So the series has come out. Obviously, that's going to drum up interest of people who may not have heard of the Wheel of Time and are gamers. And then there's those old gamers who had already known about the Wheel of Time and know about the previous incarnation of the Wheel of Time RPG. So I wanted to discuss
the previous incarnation. I thought you told me there was only one incarnation.
There's only one, right? So
okay.
Previous means two?
Previous implies that there's a new one.
Well, no, not really. I mean, no. There's only one. So with the new series out, I think it's going to drum up some interest in possibly, especially gamers, of possibly wanting to play in that world, in that setting. Like I said, there was in 2001, which is actually early on. 2001, Wheel of Time was made by Wizards of the Coast.
And it's made with the 3.0 system?
Yeah, 3.0. Third edition that just came out in 2000. So less than a year later, they already had a Wheel of Time full color, really nice looking book. And they called it, that was their first, it might have been their first incarnation of the D20 or unveiling of the D20 system as they called it. It's not quite the same fever of the D20 times when everything and everybody was producing something. This was a high quality project. It was by Wizards of the Coast. So it's a little different than all these other smaller companies who were vying for a bit of the D20 money by coming up with all kinds of expansion books, rule books, setting books, and all this other stuff that came out during the D20 craze.
Robert Jordan was actually a creative consultant with Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, he wrote the foreword to it too.
And if you don't know, Robert Jordan is the one that wrote the Wheel of Time books. And if you haven't read the Wheel of Time books, you probably should.
Well, Jolene has read the Wheel of Time a few times now. I forget how many times.
I think I'm on my 6th time right now.
So obviously she likes the series, and it's not a small feat because there is 13, 14 books in that series. I forget how many.
And they get longer each book.
Yes, that's kind of weird. Yeah, so he was involved. That's right, because he did write the foreword, and he did play D&D. He played D&D with his kids, his grandkids, or his kids. No, his sons and his son and his friends.
And also, in the introduction of that book, he reveals that he was a dungeon master for
That's what I'm talking
D&D.
about. Yeah, for his son.
Yeah.
Robert Jordan was. And so he was particularly brutal, according to his own...
Child?
Admission.
Oh.
He said that he played by the book, and if the characters died, they died. There was no fudging of the rules and no fudging dice. And I thought it was an interesting way to play, since 3rd edition definitely made it harder for PCs to die. You could go to -10, I believe, and all this other stuff. And there was ways of trying to save people. I think he played probably AD&D, if not, I don't know how old. Yeah, he was pretty old. So he probably played original D&D and then Advanced Dungeons & Dragons or 2nd edition, one of those three. And because 3rd edition had just came out. So that is interesting that I forgot that he had been a consultant in the rules of that game. So the system didn't catch on, right? The books, I bought them because I liked the Wheel of Time. I was a fan of the books. And I thought it would be interesting to try to play in that world, even though as difficult as it is, because it seems like it's a story about the person being born, the dragon, and who's either going to conquer the world or destroy it or make it better or whatever. So that's a huge story. And then I guess the idea was that you could either play in that world and kind of follow along or work on your own side quests and stuff. But anyway, I think I played it once at a con, and the lady who ran the game was obviously a fan, but she didn't know anything about the rules. And I think she might have admitted that she only played the D&D a little bit, but hers was more of a tale of being immersed in that world.
Did she use the main characters or...
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
so the thing... I remember Saul buying the book when it came out, and I remember him going, "Oh, I'll run it for you if you want to play it." And I thought, well, it's the same thing Morgan, if you're listening, as the Lord of the Rings. It's one of those worlds that I'm not sure that I want people messing around with, right? Because I like the lore, the canon, whatever. So the idea of people tromping around in it, to me, always seems a little bit, I don't know, not right, because you might mess up something. But then I've played in the Lord of the Rings now, or the One Ring, with these guys that kept badgering me to do it. So I had a lot of fun, except we did meet Bilbo, and I didn't like the way that turned out. So,
well, that's, everybody has their own interpretation of what would transpire if you met these particularly these really famous characters from the books.
So that's what I think, that I find it. I thought it would be really hard to play an adventure in the Wheel of Time, but now that I've played in the One Ring, I can see that it is possible to do it without messing around with the canon involving the main characters
from the books.
The other thing I thought would be harder for the Wheel of Time is the use of the one power, because it's not necessarily like a sorcerer or a magician, right? It's an innate ability that, well, I guess sorcerers kind of have innate abilities, but it's like pulling power out of the universe, right? And redirecting it. And I didn't know exactly how that would work. But now that they've made the series and they actually show you on screen, I go, oh, that's a good way to show it. I really like the way they did it. So now I could see that. I could see it.
Well, there's always a problem with something that's in a book and then translate to a system that you already play, like Dungeons and Dragons, and thinking, how are they going to handle like that, the one power? How's that going to work? And I think the sorcerer fits really well, but there's also the idea that this is I should have said this is a spoiler-free episode. We're not going to talk about what happens in the books, but there's some stuff that you should know that basically, as you watch the show, they're going to tell you about, because they need to give you information about.
You mean
the
the show or the books? You said the
Either
books.
Way, the books or the show. So the idea that you had about the sorcerer being a good version of a channeler, they call them channelers, or I think they call them channelers. Mm-hmm. And it's a very interesting way that they do it, because the only people who can channel safely are women. The men who channel, who work with magic, let's just call it that, they slowly go crazy because they use that power.
Not necessarily slowly. Sometimes they go crazy quickly, right away.
Right. Well, it all depends, right? For story elements, it depends. And I don't remember how they handled it in the 3rd edition books. It's been years since I looked at it. It's still sitting on my shelf. I even bought a supplement that came out with it. They called Prophecy of the Dragon, which that's an interesting. That is an interesting campaign. But the idea that they would have to introduce an element of something different to deal with that storyline in the books, that women can channel and not suffer from mental degradation, and men who channel either slowly I would think in the game it would have to be slowly if you played a male channeler, because
unless it was going to be a one shot and you died right away or something.
Oh, you went mad.
Yeah. Also, women that can channel, they will most likely die if they're not trained, unless they're like a healer kind of channeling and figure it out on their own. Because sometimes the women that can channel don't know they can channel. They're usually
I think they're talking about they can
wisdom or the mother or whatever, people that heal people.
Well, I think the wisdom. Okay, so wisdom is like the local healer of a village, right? And the idea behind them is probably that they don't try to do too much. One, I don't think they believe that they're channeling. Two, I think they believe that they're just using herbs and homeopathic type of stuff to heal people. And they may have some sort of mystical talent, but I think that's kind of pushed back or pushed down in the village's eyes, because people don't like people who use magic.
Well, if you think about Robert Jordan is from South Carolina, Charleston, and it's like having the wise woman or the person who actually you used to go to get healed before doctors. Or
that's a long time ago.
Yeah, but he was born in 48 or something like that. Oh. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
And they didn't like those people either. I mean, they were scared of them, right?
Right. Okay. So there's all kinds of things in the world of real time. I mean, the guy wrote, well, before he passed away, he wrote 12 books, I think. A lot of it is just a lot of lore is being doled out, and a lot of information is being given out, and a lot of it is description, but there is a lot of stuff to introduce, or the way he introduces it. So for playing of the game, I don't think you really have to give that information dump, because you could play somebody who's from a village, like the main characters in this book. They're from this place called the Two Rivers or Edmondsfield, and they're basically out in the hinterland. Nothing happens out there. They don't usually see strangers, stuff like that. The only people they see on a regular basis that's not from the village is like a peddler or a merchant of some sort. So you could be from one of those and not know a lot, just know something about the village. But the world is huge and has varied cultures and different politics. He has all kinds of different places to come from and to be a part of. Depending on the characters you make and where they come from, I think it depends on how much lore you want to get steeped in.
It's like it's like Star Wars or Star Trek.
Okay.
When you're playing with, if you're gonna run a game like that, especially like if you're gonna run it at a convention or something, you'll probably run into people who know it probably better than you do.
Maybe me, yes.
Well,
I'm not.
Me too, and I've read the books a lot of times. But I remember back in the 90s when we were still on AOL, that there were boards of people that were total fans.
Yes.
Fanatics.
Yes, and they would write in the, like, as they were a character in the.
Yes,
the
they were they were an Aes Sedai, or they were a warder, or they were. It was just a little over the top for me, but so there's obviously people. It's just like any other genre, right?
True. Yeah. So especially if you're talking about a world or a game that takes place in a world that's already been built up, written about, or like a film. I think that's pretty difficult to do unless everybody has seen the movie or everybody's read the book.
Well, and if you play Dungeons and Dragons, this is a world like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's probably more deadly because there's Trollocs and there's evil things. There's all kinds of, so it comes across the same way. Right.
I think it is very deadly in the books. People die very easily, and even in the show, they kind of mimic that. I don't know if third edition was quite the right fit for that kind of action. Also, because it was a D20 product, they have levels and they have an experience, and you go up in levels and it probably get stronger and stuff like that. So you become harder and harder to kill. I'm not sure that's the best set to use or to try to convey the Wheel of Time world. But if you want, I mean, the Wheel of Time books are probably still there. I know they're all still available on eBay, even some resellers like Noble Knight. I think he's out of Wisconsin or somewhere in Midwest. And then there's Wayne's Books, and they're a used bookstore. They specialize in games and stuff. So they'll get a copy of the rules, and used bookstores. I've seen it at used bookstores and stuff. And
have you? Because you haven't picked up any extra copies, which you...
No, I have not, but I have seen them, and for a while there before the series, it basically has fallen into that category that was a game I was never going to get to run or play because there wasn't that much interest. I don't know, it's kind of weird because you were really interested in that.
So is Kathy and Steve, so I don't know why you didn't...
At the time, they weren't interested. Remember, this is 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago, because it came out 2001. So it's been out of print, obviously. A little bit harder to come by. You just can't go to the store and buy it. So it is difficult to find a little bit. I think you can find it. And probably with the show, because just the way markets are, they probably raise a lot of people are in demand. There's more demand. The prices go up for these books.
Maybe they'll come out with a new edition.
Correct. So
maybe someone will kickstart it. Anybody out there, that's an idea for you.
Well, one is I don't know who owns the rights to publish the game, whether it's WOTC still, which I doubt.
I doubt it. It's probably Robert Jordan's family would have to, or his wife.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. I haven't really looked into it. And I'm pretty sure that WOTC lost the right to publish that rule set. Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, someone has the rights because they just made a show.
Well, there's different rights and stuff like that are totally different, right? You can have the rights to the show, but you can't publish something in another media. It's crazy. Those kind of contracts are crazy. To digress, but there's like for example, what is it? I forget what show it. Okay, let's say Firefly. Remember Firefly? Serenity, the RPG. Now Serenity, they said you could make the role playing game, but it's based on the movie. You can't use any images or anything that's in the show, because that was held by a different license holder or something like that. That's crazy, right? So that's kind of weird. All the pictures and all the stuff is based on the movie, but not the show. So they called it Serenity. Years later, another company gets and calls their RPG about that world Firefly. There you go. So there's two sets of rule books for
that world,
for Firefly world, and one of them is called Serenity because that's the rights that they got, and the other one's called Firefly.
And I'm sure all the brown coats already know that and already have them.
So we're not talking about Firefly, we're talking about the Wheel of Time. So I think the Wheel of Time in this instance, I don't know if there's enough interest for an RPG, because I'm not sure if people who watch the show will naturally translate into a RPG, but there is more interest because it is a hugely, it is a very popular show. I think it's the number one streamed show in the last 5 weeks or whatever, to 7 weeks. Well, at the time of this recording, the 8th and final episode of the season is going to drop this Friday.
Yeah, and
it looks like there's just to get into the weeds, people who have read the books and love the books, are a fan of the books. Some people just hate the show because it's just too different than what they envisioned or how they would put the story out.
Well, that's hard because
yes,
I had told Saul, I go, when I knew the show was going to come out, I go, I'm going to read it again because I don't think I've read the Brandon Sanderson novels yet because they're just big and it had been a while since I read it. So I go, I'll read it again and before the show comes out. So I got through the first couple books before the show came out. And because I just started like a couple weeks before,
right?
But I go, I'll go on to Facebook and see what the Wheel of Time people are talking about, because I haven't looked at what they've said for a long time
since AOL.
Yeah, they were a little too fanatical for me, but they were nuts again. They were like, and as soon as the show came out, I go, don't even look, Saul. They're gonna give you spoilers. They're gonna tell you how horrible it is. And I told him, look, I'm going into this show going, I know this world. I love this world. And I'm interested to see how they're going to portray certain things and what the people are going to look like. And I have no expectations because I didn't want to be disappointed. And I wasn't disappointed at all. They changed stuff and I'm all, oh, that's not the way it is in the books, but that's okay. Right.
At first I was a little bit more critical, right? I haven't read the books in 20 years.
No, 15.
Let's say 15, just to make Jolene happy. And even me, I thought some of the changes were glaring, and I'm like, and it kind of like, at first I was like, man, this guy, I didn't like that. I don't like this. I don't like that. And I was nitpicking, but it wasn't like I was like, oh, the show totally sucks. It's just really different, and it was striking to me. And then as we watched the second and third episodes, it kind of grew on me. And then the idea that this is what a lot of people who are fans of books and then see the translation of the book into film or a TV, they have to let go of the idea that they're going to see a show that they envisioned in their head.
Well, I think what really got you was you read an article about the person who's creating the show. Right. I forget what his name is.
Rafi Jenkins or something.
Did you just make that up?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how to pronounce his first name because it's R-E-F-E, Raf, or R-A-F-E.
Anyway, He actually did read the books. And because people were saying, I don't think he's even read the books. How can he do this? And I'm like going, oh, yeah. And I kept telling Saul, I go, you can't expect it to. They're shoving into 8 episodes an entire book, plus they're adding in things from other ideas, right?
Yeah, and the thing is that I even know this is that transliteral showing on film or TV show what happens in the book is not going to happen. It's terrible, right? It's just going to not work. So you have to change it no matter what. Some of the changes, I'm like, it kind of left like a bad taste in my mouth. But then I'm like, okay, once you get over the idea that this is an adaptation of the book. It's like one of those TV movies that says based on true events.
Right.
Now, it didn't happen exactly like this. And they had to dramatize things a little bit and downplay some of the stuff that happened. So that's the way you got to look at it. You got to look at it in that sense. And it was only after the second or third episode that we watched. But those first three were like, they put them out right away.
Yes.
But we didn't watch it. We didn't binge watch them. You had to dole them out to me. So by the time we watched the third one, I was pretty happy with what they were doing. And I had the realization, okay, they're not filming what I envisioned in my head. There's no way they can, because I'm a totally different person than the producer of the show or whatever. So I'm perfectly happy with the show. I'm perfectly happy with the books. And so I had to leave that group, that Facebook group.
Yeah, he couldn't take it.
I couldn't take it because it was just demeaning and arguing. And there was hardly, there's some things you can do, be critical, creative criticism of the show or even the books. But, oh my God, even the books.
I wouldn't do that.
but it wasn't that. It was just people were being mean to each other, calling each other names. They were making fun of the creator of the show. You know, like you said, they were saying that he hadn't even read the books, which I thought was kind of weird. So I had to investigate a little bit, like, is it true? And sure enough, it's totally not true, right? People were saying that he didn't know how to run a show. It was like an amateur filmmaking class. Even young people or students in filmmaking, the first class, they make a better movie than this. And I'm like, well, that's not true, because I watched the show and it's done really well. I thought this was done really well.
So if they had all this talking about how much they hated the show, just imagine playing in it and the GM doesn't play in the game, right?
Oh, yeah.
The role-playing game, and the GM doesn't envision the world the same way that you do, or
yes.
see the characters the same way you do.
Right.
So how in the Wheel of Time book, the role-playing game book,
yes.
What are the classes and stuff? Did you look at all that?
There's all kinds of classes.
Okay.
There's all kinds of archetypes. There's this type of soldier, this type of warrior. There's the Aes Sedai, and then they have the different Ajas, which are different. Think of them as different sects of the female channelers. You know, they all group themselves according to a color, and their color has a primary. What is it? How would you call it? Reason what they are really invested in, or what they're really interested in.
Such as like Moraine Sedai is blue Aja, and the blues always have a cause.
Right.
The yellow Aja, they're the healers.
Okay.
The brown Aja are the librarians. They will research anything.
Right. So you get the gist of that.
And the red Aja are the ones that hate men and want to destroy them.
Hate male channelers.
Yes.
Not men in general. No, that comes
there
across.
are quite a few that in the books that don't like men at all. So, and anyway. not like they're gay or anything, like they only like women, but like they really, they dislike men a lot. They feel like they've ruined the world.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And continue to, because they're male channelers.
And importantly, the green Aja is the battle Aja.
I keep thinking the green is the healer, but you're right.
And the green Aja is the ones that in the lore were out there leading the battles against the dark armies.
Oh, there you go. So let's say, so somebody out there, I forget, I don't have the link. I might put in the show notes. I always say I'll put something in the show notes and then I forget. But somebody you could probably you Google it yourself and put in 5th edition Wheel of Time.
5th edition?
5th edition Wheel of Time. And somebody has gone ahead and converted the 3rd edition books to 5th edition, and it's an open document.
Homebrew,
yes.
Yeah.
But it's really well done. It looks just like the Wheel of Time RPG book. Has that same style. It has the same. The pages are colored. There's color on the pages. It's just not a text document. It has pictures, and it's really well done. And the thing is that he says, well, this is just my interpretation of what the rules would be like. Does anybody have any questions? And so people have been giving them creative criticism, right? They're saying, well, how about if you would handle this way and this way and that way? And I read a little bit. I didn't really go too much into detail, but it looked interesting. And I'm like, well, if this guy can do a Wheel of Time, and he has like an 80 something page document, probably a little bit more. And I can only imagine the Wizards of the Coast, who are a big company, or any other company who would want to get into this RPG action with the Wheel of Time popularity. You could go find a D20 version and play that. That would be probably the easiest thing you could do. You could find this guy's 5th edition rules and use that if you're not too worried about everything being, working perfectly, right? There's going to be some imbalances. And he admits some of the stuff is imbalanced because I can't figure out how to balance it. And that is a critical problem in Dungeons and Dragons, because if things are really unbalanced, some characters are going to be more powerful than the others.
But that's kind of in the Wheel of Time. That's the way it is.
Yeah, that's the way it is. But no, who wants to play Uncle Chuck, who doesn't? What skills does he have to bring to bear? I mean, compared to a warder who is a protector of the Aes Sedai, or an Aes Sedai themselves who can channel magic, or a male channeler who's going to go crazy but can do some bizwang stuff by himself. Or a soldier.
It depends. Like, I would think that a Shannara soldier who's like has a heron mark blade and stuff would be pretty cool. I mean, when I read the books, there's all kinds of different. Of course,
that's true.
But it is like D&D, right? Your player character is going to be a hero unless the world is so harsh that you're not going to want to play in it, right?
Right. Well, you're right. D&D is that way. D&D, the characters are special, right? If they weren't special, they would just stay home and do whatever they would do.
Right. This is going to be the same thing, because people don't like, why would you leave the 2 rivers or one of the cities if you weren't going to go on an adventure? And I think the best adventures in this one would be like going a hunt for the horn, like the Great Hunt, or...
Right. I'm thinking of, we're talking about the rules. 5th edition would probably fit, since they already made a 3rd edition. You could easily port stuff, and then this person's already worked on it, so there you go. But what about other systems out there that I figure might fit better or be easier to translate into Wheel of Time? So the first one off the top of my head is the Year Zero engine, right? It's super simple rules, right? You can expandable rules. You can expand them all you want, add all this stuff you want, depending on how you want to go about it. And the magic system might be a little harder, because I haven't seen a magic system in Year Zero engine. I remember doing it myself when I made my own version of Carnival Row. Character race can have magic, but it was very limited, right? Unlike Aes Sedai, who can like do all these whiz bang stuff. So that would be something that you would have to mitigate in the rules, and that would be like the hardest thing to integrate. I think everything else I think would work. You'd probably have to have some sort of sanity mechanic if everybody.
Well, wouldn't you be able to take the magic rules or from the 3rd edition and then kind of tweak them however you wanted?
I'm talking about Year Zero engine.
Well, you're saying that they don't have a magic system. Then you could just kind of. Yeah. I mean, if you're making it up, I mean, or adjusting what you don't like, then there you go.
Yeah, you're right. Thing about Year Zero engine, most of the games, because they are really role play heavy, which I think would be perfect for Wheel of Time, because a lot of people love the role playing aspect of it instead of the, I'm going to kill this trolley because he's worth 100 experience or whatever they are. That's not even a thing in Year Zero. You're asked like most of the experience you get is like 1. Well, 1 is what you get, and you get 1 for every question you say yes to. Like,
so murder hobos wouldn't do very good, especially since you wouldn't want to loot the body of a Trolloc.
Right.
Because it could kill you.
They ask questions like, did you do anything to save one of your fellow people in your party? Yes. Did you learn something new? Yes. And you answer these questions. For every yes, you get a point of experience. That's what I'm talking about. Super simple all the way around. I like the idea of the way they have usually 4 stats, and each stat has either 3 or 4 skills attached to it, and that's it.
So you wouldn't just take the book and just use the 3rd edition rules that it has in it? I mean, it's already there. You're saying for people that don't like the 3rd edition rules?
Correct. Or a company out there would want to try to take it over.
Oh, I see. I can see as a new, like a Kickstarter or someone doing it. But I think if you really want to play it, then I think you could adapt the 3rd edition rules to however you wanted.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, don't change. You don't need to change a whole bunch of stuff for us to play it.
No, but people, it's going to be hard. It's a harder RPG to find because it's out of print.
Oh, I see.
And I don't know. I haven't checked the prices on eBay for them, but I mean, the book when I had it before the show, it was costing between $80 to $120, depending on who you try to buy it from. Those were prices that people wanted, not necessarily what people were getting. So that's always the thing about eBay. People say, "Well, my book is worth $200." Well, okay, you can put it on eBay for $200, but will it sell for $200? I don't know. Other stuff, yes, but not. I don't know about this one. But now I'm sure the prices have gone up. That's what I'm saying, because people are going to go, "Oh, I wonder if there's a game for Wheel of Time." Oh, yeah, there is. I'm going to bid on it. And then people bid it. And they go, "Oh, we can get more money for these books than we were selling them for earlier." So I'm just going through other systems that might work if you want to play in a Wheel of Time. The next I have is the 2D20 system. I like it because it's a little bit more crunchier. But the only problem is that usually every iteration of the 2D20 system usually has a life path system. That means like you either roll or you choose where you're from. You roll and you choose who your father was. You roll and you choose what you got into, what your interests are. And there's this, and then by the time you're done making a character, you have this fully fleshed out character. He has, or she has flaws. They have habits. They have all these things. That would be a lot of work to do for a game system to convert Wheel of Time. But I think it would work good. It'd be like a Conan type of thing. Like I said, usually character creation is a kind of a long process, but when you're done, you have a very unique character, which is pretty cool. That's what I liked about the Wheel of Time. Everybody had like a really different personality. They were all different, so I think that would work. And the system is pretty cool. And you could do magic too. The D100 system, BRP, Zweilander, one of those systems. I think BRP all around is really easily scalable. You can make a grand game or a small game depending on, and what grand is by, I mean, are the heroes like really great heroes of the realm, or are these just village farmer people who are just trying to do whatever they're trying to do by protecting their village or whatever? That's what I mean by scalable. Of course, the characters can be very diverse. BRP has a lot of tables of quirks and scars and all the stuff that you can have when you make a character.
I don't like the tables.
Well, I think most games now, instead of just rolling, they let you choose. So they give you a lot of options. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I would want is to pick my options, not roll for them.
And BRP, there's a lot of games out there. There's, Call of Cthulhu, there's Glorantha, and all this stuff. And what that allows you to do is, if you want, you can Frankenstein, take bits and pieces of other games and make your Wheel of Time game. I talked about Zweilander before. It's a little bit of it's a little different than the BRP. It is a D100 system, but they include power dice, like give you an extra oomph if you're lucky. It's a little crunchier. I think it's crunchier than basic or a role-playing game, BRP. I'm just going to call it BRP. It's a little bit more crunchy. There's a little bit more rules added. There's combat can be a little bit more tactical. But Robert Jordan was a tactical kind of guy, right?
He was.
He liked his battle scenes. He liked the way people, his generals and stuff would be tactical. Or some of them, I remember some horse lord from somewhere he thought he could save any battle, or what is it? He can win every battle with a good horse charge.
But that was the beauty of it, because he described all of it. So
right.
So it was there were a lot of different viewpoints. Okay, so my eyes are starting to glaze over.
So who's gonna make it this game, and what system would you use? I don't know.
But he's excited to find out when it comes along.
Yeah, I am really excited to see if anybody moves on this property, right?
And if they don't, then there's already the game that you could.
And somebody else has already done a homebrew and is published, or not published, but has put it out there.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to play right now, there's a way of doing it, right? You can, and I'm not sure.
Did you check on? Is there a PDF of it?
I don't know. I was just about to check. Can you check for me?
No, not right now.
I don't know. I know Wizards of the Coast opened up a lot of stuff, like old stuff that they had in their library, like even original D&D and first edition stuff, and put it on Drive-Thru RPG, and you can buy the PDF of them. You can buy the PDF of them. But I don't know about intellectual properties such as this, because they may not have the rights to it anymore. So if they lost the rights to it, they can't sell the PDF of it. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on this podcast. I have no idea. Mark, if you ever listen to our show, can you answer that question for me? But I'm guessing they can't sell the PDF if they lost the rights to it. Because I know, for example, Margaret Weiss Productions, she had, because it's a woman in charge. I don't know if she's really in charge of her company, but whoever's in charge of the company, they had Supernatural, they had Battlestar Galactica, they had Smallville, Leverage, and I forget what other things. But I know they lost the rights to sell their books, like Battlestar Galactica. So I remember at one point they were just flooding the market with their books. Like you could, a friend of mine who was a distributor, instead of their paying their bills that they owed him, they just paid him in books. And so he had a ton of that stuff, of Margaret Weiss Production stuff, and he would just sell it like at $10 a piece. This was like years ago. And then as they were saying they were going to lose their license, they lost the license, and now you cannot get it from a retail. Well, I don't know. Anybody can sell the stuff that they used to have on stock on hand, but they can't sell the PDF. Whoever, Margaret Weiss Productions, because they lost the.
I'm just going to say that may or may not be a problem for people, because I know people that find stuff on the internet all the time that you're not supposed to
pirate
have
stuff, and I personally don't do it. I don't think it's right. I think people who do work should get paid for it, and that's just the way I think. And I know people out there who don't have a lot of money, and I understand that. That's there was a place called the Treasure Trove or something like that had all kinds of.
I know nothing about any of this stuff.
Illegal PDFs, but it was closed down. It was shut down, and they said they were going to come back, and I haven't seen them come back yet. But I haven't looked either. So the Wheel of Time, if you absolutely have to play it now, there is a book. There are books out there. They're D20 books. They're 20 years old. They're really nice books. There's only one. There's the core book, and then there's the Prophecy of the Dragon Adventure.
And that's the only one that's put out.
Only two game books that came out.
I don't know if there might be fan ones that you don't have to pay for. Somewhere.
Oh yeah, there might be. I really like the Prophecy of the Dragon, because what happens is you're involved with the whole storyline in the books. It kind of follows along, but you're not part of the main characters. You're just like, you're dealing with the wake of these powerful characters making a way, tearing across different parts of the world. So it's pretty interesting. I've never run it, obviously, but I've read a little bit of it. I thought it was interesting how they were able to fit the characters into the storyline, and actually it made sense to me when I was reading the first adventure. I go, oh yeah, because they talk about what's going on in the book, but it's like it's not in the main area; it's something else, and
it's off to the side.
Right, he might have mentioned it, but he just mentions it.
Right.
This thing happened over there, like this disturbance.
Well, and there's so many good enemies and bad things going on. I mean, you got the Children of the Light, you got the Sachin coming in, so there's all kinds of besides just evil things like Trollocs and Mandrels.
For people who haven't read the books or seen the show, they're
the bad guys.
Well,
most of the time.
Okay, so like I said, you can find this book if you find it. I think it's a neat book. I think it's very not very valuable, but it's very well done. I mean, when WOTC made this book, it was one of the first books that they put out, and they had high hopes of it being super popular, but I don't think it ever catched on. It just
caught on.
What did I say?
Catched.
Wow. Okay, it is early. We do record at 6:00 in the morning, so.
Something went wrong.
Oh.
Try again in a few seconds.
Okay, thanks, Amazon lady. All right, well.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And everybody have a good holiday. Thank you for listening.